Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. This is a very highly anticipated video as this is the review for the first 2 episodes of Daredevil Born Again. It's finally here, and with its 2-episode premiere, I want to go in and talk about it. Of course, there will be a sort of non-spoiler section just going through my overall thoughts with these first 2 episodes of Daredevil Born Again, and then later on I will get into the nitty-gritty details and the specifics of those episodes. As someone who's finally gone through these first 2 episodes, what are my general thoughts on it? So far, so good. Of course, I only think time will tell as the series progresses and as we get more and more episodes until the end of it all and as it wraps up. But as of right now, with these 2 episodes, I think so far they got the ground running. What they're clearly setting up in this season, at least in these first few episodes, with the relationships and the characters and their dynamics and all these other things, so far has me really intrigued how this will evolve as the show goes on. So far, this show does have those Netflix elements that we are all familiar with, but at the same time, it's still doing its own thing, and it's sort of like I wouldn't call it a new show per se. I would still say it is, but they are doing new, unique things. They are introducing new characters as well and how they fit into the story. Right out the gate, I really want to say, like, both Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio playing both Daredevil and Kingpin respectively, they do not disappoint. I mean, to be fair, they never disappointed at all when it comes to the Netflix series of Daredevil. Those 3 seasons, those actors and everybody else, without a doubt, Daredevil and Kingpin, played by Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, they are complete standouts. Their scenes together as well as separately from one another are really great. I mean, the clip is already out there. Matt Murdock and Kingpin Wilson Fisk having their one-on-one talk with one another. I mean, that clip alone and the acting between these two, it is really amazing. So far, the action in this episode, we've only, I guess it's sort of like a minor spoiler, but we've only kind of gone like maybe 2-3 action sequences. But for the most part, it's a story that so far it's a lot more dialogue focused and a lot more character focused. So far with these 2 episodes, there isn't as much action in it as expected, but I think that's really good. And that's not a critique or negative of the show. I think one of the pluses about Daredevil wasn't just the action alone or the violence. There's certainly a good contributing factor to the tone of the Netflix series, but I think what we all love about the Netflix show as well is the scenes between characters having dialogue and discussing and talking to one another. I like that we had those here. We do explore the relationships and the dynamics of these characters, and this is both a continuation and an evolution from those Netflix series. So seeing these characters in the present day, especially in the MCU now, it's really cool to see that they're being brought into the fold. The action is amazing. I really enjoyed the action so far in these first 2 episodes as well. That first sequence in the beginning is truly amazing. If you know, you know. So far, everything with this show, I'm really enjoying. I'm really liking what we're exploring. We're exploring both Matt and Kingpin, who are trying to lead new paths in their life. Their past is catching up to them, and their past tendencies are catching up to them. To see these men slowly but surely resort to who they are is going to be really cool, and it only just feels like these first 2 episodes are ramping up towards that. I don't know if I can get into more of the nitty-gritty details of this without getting into spoilers, but I have to get into spoilers, so this is your spoiler warning. If you've not seen the first 2 episodes of Daredevil Born Again, please pause this video, go watch those episodes, and come right back. Spoilers time. In the first episode, we open back up on Hell's Kitchen. Matt, Foggy, and Karen coming out of their law firm. Nelson and Murdock Page, which was from the finale of Daredevil season 3. Seeing that come into fold here and seeing these characters, their dynamic and their relationship again was really truly wonderful. I really loved that, and it just felt like we were back home again. Seeing that side of the city again, and the music especially, everything was really truly amazing. Just seeing our characters just be happy, it just feels very familiar, and it feels nice to see our characters just in that element. One of Foggy's clients, called Benny, someone is going after them. Matt Murdock hears this, and what I liked about this first episode, I think particularly with the filmmaking for this compared to the Netflix show, I know a lot of people sort of had complaints about the visual style and the way they're filming for this show, because it looks a lot more, I'd say this show looks a lot more like cinematic, I guess, if you could say. There's sort of like a cinematic TV kind of feel to it, whereas the Netflix shows, there was a certain artistic flair in the way they shot things and the cinematography of the Netflix series as well, especially with the lighting and the neon lighting of certain scenes that just really made that show kind of feel very comic booky in terms of the way the colors would pop and stuff. Whereas here, there is a different style of filming, and whether, you know, you're that kind of person, whether that bugs you or not will be your assessment and your critique, but it didn't really bother me necessarily. But I really like the way they're approaching the utilization of Matt's abilities, particularly with his senses and the way he hears, because when he hears Foggy on the phone, we see that it essentially becomes a whole full screen. To visualize Matt's hearing, we get a sort of wide sort of aspect ratio, and then we sort of zoom back down to the normal aspect ratio as Matt more or less hones his senses. That was a really cool touch, and I really like that. Pretty much we hear that one of Foggy's clients is in trouble. Matt suits up and uses his billy club to essentially grapple and do a shit ton of parkour, and we see him in the suit. We see, just as he's approaching, Matt is on the rooftops and he's running. He also hears from Foggy's client that he essentially gave away his location to this person that was initially after him. Man, what really broke my heart was when Matt heard that Foggy's client gave away their location. He hears this and he immediately tries to run back. We see both Foggy and Karen outside the bar sort of panicking, don't know what to do. And then we see Foggy get shot in the chest. Just seeing it all unfold as we see right after Foggy gets shot, two other people in the bar, when they come outside, they get double tapped in the head, revealed that it's none other than Benjamin Poindexter himself, Bullseye, in his sort of this proto costume of sorts. I mean, Daredevil swings in and gets Bullseye, and they're in the bar and they're both throwing hands, but whilst doing so, Bullseye is trying to fight Daredevil. Bullseye is also just killing everybody else around him, innocent bystanders, and it's just innocent people. And it just, whilst that's all going on, the chaos of the fight, and we're seeing Matt trying to do his best to juggle between stopping Bullseye, saving the innocents that are being killed by Bullseye, but also hearing Karen trying to keep Foggy alive. And you're just seeing all that, and you're seeing the juggling of that unfold as the fight goes on. Was really truly amazing and tragic at the same time. It was almost a ticking time bomb that you didn't want to go off, but you knew it was going to eventually. Daredevil and Bullseye, they're going at each other's throats and everything, and then we get the confirmation of Foggy's death by Karen. It was just really heartbreaking for the show to take that kind of a swing and really bold approach, just because we were clamoring for these characters come back, especially with Foggy and Karen, because they were kind of what made the Netflix show what it was. So to see them go this route is definitely a bold swing on Marvel Studios' part. I dare say hard to digest, just because of the fact Foggy and Matt's relationship, it's really strong. It's honestly one of the best parts of the Netflix show. But yeah, but just seeing all that unfold, it was really truly sad. Where the hell was the ambulance, man? Like, the ambulance should have gotten there ASAP, but by the time Daredevil drops his freaking helmet, only now they're there. So I'm like, what the hell, you know? It was just kind of tragic seeing both Karen having to deal with that, because she was literally there trying to keep Foggy alive, but it was also really tragic seeing Matt having to deal with that too, because this is his best friend, and hearing him die, and he's just beating the living crap out of Bullseye especially, and he's just, part of him is both angry and devastated and heartbroken and all these multitude of emotions. What surprised me the most was the fact that Daredevil, he just freaking pushes off Bullseye off the roof of the bar, and he just plummets to the ground. Everybody there also hearing the thud, but Karen really worried because she thought it was Matt, only to look that it was Benjamin Poindexter, so she was somewhat relieved but also still sad. And we see Matt sort of take off his mask, and we just see him just outright heartbroken, and he's just really sad. And then we cut to 1 year later. Matt sort of lives in New York now, as well as Fisk. They do mention that they've both not been in Hell's Kitchen for some time, so it seems as though both Matt Murdock as well as Wilson Fisk, they're fully residing in New York. We learn in this first episode that he has a new law firm. It's called Murdock and McDuffie being a new supporting character in this series, as well as another character called Cherry, who's this detective character who knows of Matt's identity being the Daredevil because he was on the rooftop and he saw Matt without his mask. We get to the trial of Bullseye. It was really emotional seeing Matt Murdock giving his testimony against Bullseye and sending him to prison. And I honestly was kind of giggling, but just seeing the vindication of Matt Murdock essentially like wanting to punch the air in like happiness because of the fact that Bullseye essentially got given his punishment. I think it was him going to prison for life. But I do feel like this won't be the last we see of Poindexter, because I remember there being a frame in the trailer where he's being escorted. That may not be the end of the character. I feel like there may be more to Bullseye. I'd like to see a upgraded suit with the black and white colors. After the trial, Karen and Matt kind of reconnecting with one another after that incident in Hell's Kitchen at Josie's Susie's bar. They've both been distant from one another, and we see how both of them are dealing with it. And even when Karen sort of leaves, you can see that it really sucks because of the fact, like, you see the pain of essentially losing Foggy was bad enough, but losing another friend in that of Karen was even hurtful for Matt too. We see Matt Murdock's found a new sort of love interest in that of Heather Glenn, but we also know that later on she's kind of has her own sort of secret. But we also catch up with Wilson Fisk, and we see both him and his wife Vanessa. They're both sort of running the business, or she's running the business during Fisk's absence, so she's been running his whole business and everything else. But we also see that the relationship between both Wilson Fisk as well as Vanessa, they are not in sync as they were before. Within this first episode and going into the second, we see that Wilson Fisk has officially become the mayor. There are people in New York that accept it, some don't, yada yada yada. But Wilson Fisk's speech definitely is the one that got everyone's attention, because in his speech about for there to not be vigilantes, he mentions the Punisher, because he mentions someone with a skull on their shirt. He mentions a man dressed as a spider, ? That is honestly insane to me that they've actually shouted out Spider-Man verbatim. They didn't outright say Spider-Man, but come on, a man dressed as a spider, literally, that is Spider-Man. And I'm just praying to God that in some shape or form Spider-Man 4 is a street level movie with Kingpin and Daredevil there to team up. Even add in John Berthal's Punisher in there if you want to. I don't know. One can dream. And of course, Wilson Fisk also shouts out the guy with devil horns, which is obviously Matt Murdock of Daredevil. So we see that Wilson Fisk becoming mayor, he wants to make the city better. And so far, he's sort of trying to create this public image of the fact that he's someone who's actually going out and doing these things, like how we see in episode 2 when there's traffic in the road because of this hole on the road. He's the one to actually go up to the construction workers, give them the approval, and be like, hey, work on this right now. And we see that how everybody's already immediately gone on their phones, and they see how Wilson Fisk is actively doing stuff to help the community. So I'm really interested to see how far that goes. We see how Wilson Fisk is he's really trying his best to be a mayor, but we also know the ruthlessness and the evil nature of the Kingpin and how nefarious he can be, because we see how later on when he tries to at least be kind and visit one of the cops at the funeral for one of the dead officers, he's trying to be a relatively good mayor, quote unquote, after that kind of talk. And essentially the cop tried to take down his career, like threatening to take down Wilson Fisk. We see Wilson Fisk sort of blackmailing him / like trying to quote unquote compromise with this officer by essentially showing them a picture of his wife and child and essentially threatening their livelihood. Some really tense stuff as well. There's also this other story element of Hector Aguilera, who is the White Tiger character from Marvel Comics whole lineage. It's a character, it's a sort of like legacy character of different people who bear the mantle as well as the magical amulet of the White Tiger. My personal introduction to the character of White Tiger was in the Ultimate Spider-Man TV show on Disney XD, because they featured a female version of the White Tiger character on there. So it's really cool to see this character being brought into the fold, because this season is looking to explore a lot of the vigilantes in New York and trying to put down these vigilantes. But I'm just really liking seeing where the relationships and the dynamics and the personal dilemmas are going with some of our characters, because we get Heather Glenn telling Matt that they need to do a rain check on their dinner together, because she's actually going to be the marriage counselor for both Wilson Fisk and Vanessa. So that was just truly like mind-blowing. So I wonder how that's going to affect her relationship with Matt. It's going to be really interesting to see if or when he finds out. There's also the Hector Aguilera of it all, because of him being White Tiger, because he is accused of being a cop killer, but he didn't know they were cops, nor did the cops make themselves know that they were indeed cops. It just looked like, from Hector's perspective, that two dudes were mugging some random guy in the subway, when one of the cops accidentally gets killed because they trip over and a train just goes by and hits him. So there is that. So that he's on trial essentially. He also gets sort of badly beaten up by the police in the interrogation room, which is what catches Matt's attention for him to become his lawyer and to at least try and make him innocent and get him out of jail. And we also see Matt, he also learns that he is the White Tiger vigilante, but then we also see later on Matt Murdock following and tracking one of those cops, because of the fact one of those cops is going to kill the witness witness who Hector Aguilera saved in the subway. So Matt Murdock is trialing them. He's able to go save the witness and he escapes. And he's in his apartment and the cops come there and they show up. They see that it's just Matt Murdock and they're like, okay, whatever. They try to find the witness, but of course he's not there, so on and so forth. And Matt Murdock gets beaten by those two cops. And we see that one of the cops, when he's holding Matt up against the wall, has a Punisher tattoo on his arm. So it was really interesting to see that, and I have a feeling I'll talk about it in a bit where that can potentially go. Matt Murdock is going to be Matt Murdock, and he's going to try and be suave and de-escalate the situation. I like the part where he says, I don't know, I'm just visually impaired. But Matt Murdock caves in and he starts beating those two cops senseless, and we just end on episode 2 with this primal rage scream of Matt. It was a really great start to this season. Really excited to see where they go in this first season. So far, these 2 episodes have really gotten my interest. I'm really glad that there is really good character work and really good relationship dynamics present, because I think that's what really made Daredevil a really great show. The characters who were being introduced, both old and new, are really intriguing, and I really can't wait to see what is explored of them. I forgot to mention that there is this sort of reporter character by the name of BB Urich, who is related to Ben Urich from season 1. So I'm really interested to see how her story evolves, and I'm really excited to see what her inclusion adds into this series. And to touch on what I stated earlier with one of the cops having the Punisher tattoo, there is this thing in the comics where there are certain cops who have the Punisher logo on their police car to show as though they support the Punisher. But even Punisher in this specific comic book panel, he comes up and he just tears that and he tells them to say, hey, look, I'm not a role model, nor I'm a hero, I'm a killer. If you want a role model, Captain America is your guy, but I'm not that. And considering that the cop, he's sporting a Punisher tattoo, maybe they're going to explore potentially how the cops in New York look up to Punisher. So they might try and act like the Punisher, but I think this might get Matt's attention, and that's what will make him go seek out the Punisher, especially thinking that maybe Punisher has like inspired new kind of following of people who believe in Punisher's ideas, only for it to be like, no dude, I would never want cops to be like me. I mean, John Bernthal is expected to show up in this show sooner or later, and we have seen the set pictures of them filming together, both in costume as well. So I'm really excited to see how that unfolds as well. And another thing to point just before the video concludes is that during Heather Glenn's signing for her books, which is called Live Without Fear, I think it's a really tongue-in-cheek reference to Daredevil's sort of like title. Her book was called Live Without Fear because Daredevil is known to be the man without fear. So I like that little tongue-in-cheek reference. That one of the people that comes up to her and asks her that he needs her help, they sound and look very peculiar, very odd and strange. I'm pretty sure, and I mean, this might also be potential spoilers, of course, but I think this particular actor might be playing the character of Muse, because he also got teased a bit at Muse during episode 1 as well. Whilst Matt's on the street hearing Fisk becoming mayor, we see some mysterious figure painting on this wall, only for it to be a mural of Wilson Fisk. And this guy that just randomly shows up to Heather Glenn, I think this is pretty much the actor who's playing the character of Muse, who's this psychotic street painter. He uses the blood of his victims to make art, and I'm really excited to see where that goes with his character, because we've only gotten bits and pieces of him in the trailer, and he's yet shown up in the course of this show. So I'm really excited to see where it all goes from here. That concludes this video for my thoughts on the first 2 episodes of Daredevil Born Again. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Sound off your thoughts in the comments section below. Let's have a discussion. Until then, see you all on the next one. Take care. Love you all.